Sure. All right, can you see it now? All right. So hello, everyone. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about how to start a side project. And that's something that a lot of people ask me. So yeah, I'm here to talk a little bit about it. First of all, who am I? My name is Pedro Filho. I'm a software engineer at Google Analytics. It's a company that's basically like Google Analytics, but for games. We have like 2 billion users per month. It's a crazy amount of users. And I work there as a front-end engineer, and I help them to present this data to studios and game developers. So let's talk a little bit about this. And the real thing is that everyone has an idea. And I think that everyone has that friend that comes to you and says that he has the biggest idea of the century and they want help to build that idea. And everyone thinks that that idea is the perfect one. But yeah, sometimes it's not. You have an idea, so what? The only thing that you have to do to fix that idea is do it, right? Well, sometimes not. Let's talk a little bit about how you can make like the idea that you have into something that is more concrete. I'm saying it because a lot of people like think about how to create an idea that allows to create like a project that is the next to-do app or the next Jira that everyone uses and has some complaints about it. And just one tip that I want to give here is to like live your life as a developer or as a non-tech person and try to feel the issues before you come with something. Sometimes you don't know a market and you want to create something that is already there, or you don't know it, or it's not going to fix anybody's issue, and it never works. Let's talk about like 3 simple steps so you can basically start your project. And independent if you are like a front-end engineer or a back-end engineer, if you want to create like the next perfect API for something, or if you want to create the next visual thing for something, or you're full stack and you know how to create something from scratch, it's always 3 steps. The number 1 is to find problems worth solving. All right, yeah, this one I already said some stuff about it, but it's basically try to find issues that first, if you want to monetize it, try to find issues that people would pay for it. Otherwise, you always find out that that issue that you thought that somebody would pay like $100 per month or $1 per month is not worth it. Like people will just use that other one. And it's going to be like a worth one to use. So try to find out if that market is not like is not already taken, and if it is, then come up with something really innovative, and you're on the top of the game. The second thing is, as I'm a front-end engineer and I kind of work as a full stack, some people in my teams, usually they don't have the expertise to work with the backend. And that's something that is not that, it's very recursive, like it happens a lot. Sometimes you only work with, I don't know, like React or Angular or Vue, and you don't know how to create an API, or you don't know how to build something to process data or something like that. And my tip here is to don't bother about the details and focus on your expertise. Of course, if you are a front-end engineer, try to make a side project that is basically something that you know how to do it. And you will have fun doing it. Don't try to create like the next image processing startup out there if you don't have expertise to do it. Only if the only like reason why you could do it would be to learn something new. And that's a really like nice thing to do if you want to, I don't know, like enter on the AI hype right now, for example, on machine learning and etc. If you want to create something with machine learning, neural networks, stuff like that, you can learn a lot from it. Probably that's just a probably like 99% of chance that what we'll create is not that innovative because you don't know the market yet. You're going to learn something, and then after you learn about the environment, then you can think about something new to increment on that market. And the third thing is you have to enjoy it. Don't try to create something that is like boring for you to create, because as the title says, it's a side project. That's not something that you have to like make money on it at first. It's not something that you have to like be the next Mark Zuckerberg in like 2 months. It's something that you have to create to enjoy, and you have to like it. My experience is always that if you do something that you really like doing, it's gonna become something like great in the future. But like, yeah, I already said stuff like that. This just something that you find on Twitter, on the like following some people, and I don't really like just the this kind of tip, because it's very like small based on what you can give. Because right, you have to create a side project, you have to like it, you have to create something that you like, and you have to focus on your expertise. All right, that's something that I like hear all the time. But of course, that's not everything that I'm going to say. I'm going to talk a little bit about my stack and how I create stuff for myself, and how I failed like multiple times doing stuff, but I did it like fast, and I discovered fast that it wouldn't work. If you are a Rails developer, please, or a Django developer, or like if you know any other language but not JavaScript, then I'm sorry. I'm gonna talk a little bit about TypeScript and JavaScript in general, because that's my stack. That's what I use to create my side projects, and what I found myself like doing is fast. Because of course there's going to appear like some Ruby on Rails developer and is going to say like, I can do it in 5 minutes. Yeah, Django developer is going to say the same thing. But I'm going to talk about my environment and what I use. For front end, first of all, I use Next.js. That is basically a framework that has all the good parts of React in one place, and you can create like literally a page with 4 lines. Actually, you can do it in 1 line, but I'm not going to talk about it. You can create it in 1 line if you want to. You can create like several entire e-commerce with like 5 pages, writing, I don't know, like 20 lines of code. And it's very easy to work with a front-end part. So that's why what I found myself using a lot, and what I like to use for my projects on the front-end part. Well, that is another thing that I like to use, is that over the last, I don't know, like 3-4 years, all the companies that I worked at were using AWS. And I think that like all the companies, big ones, unless like it's Microsoft based, is using something like AWS. And I like to create stuff with AWS CDK or Amplify. There are two, they are similar, but they are different in some ways. With AWS CDK, you can create only the backend, and then you can go back and create your front end for the web with Next.js, and your app with Expo in my stack, of course. And it's really easy to create entire backends with GraphQL, and even RESTful APIs. It's very easy. You have to define like your what you want to create. it can configure your DynamoDB for you. It can create everything for you. And it's really like, it has a lot of courses and posts about AWS CDK and how you can create it. It's basically, I don't know the correct name. I think that is environment as a code or something like that. That it basically can define everything outside of the AWS UI. That is something that nobody that I know loves, but everyone has to use it. So you can basically create with technologies that you know. So you can create it with Python, TypeScript, Java, if you know, like you like it. And you can create it with anything you want to. And over the past few months, I've been creating like a very small projects, things that I needed to create like fast to make a proof of concept, to show to someone, for example, a friend of mine had an idea and I liked the idea, but he needed like something really fast, and I had to create it because he promised to show to someone in like 2 weeks. So I had to create like the whole thing in 2 weeks. And when you start to create like a lot of side projects, and you start to create like the same code, so you have the boilerplate that you use for everything. So what I started doing was that I created this repo called Acme that you can just go on GitHub and fork it and use it whatever you want. It's basically monorepo with a library that you can share types, because I use TypeScript, or share functions between back and front end, and a Next.js already configured with everything that I use, and a folder to generate the AWS CDK code. So I can literally create something like really fast just using the GitHub templates. And that's something that you should use. And I found out recently that many of my friends don't know that it exists, and it exists and it's very helpful. You have to create like templates for everything that you do, because you will repeat yourself every time that you create a new project, because you are the same person and you don't change your stack on everything that you do. So every time you create something new, the stack is the same one. Not always, but usually it's the same one. So you should create a template for it in order to write less code and just do whatever you have to do. I created one for browser extensions too, because I found out that browser extensions are not a very used market. So it's very easy to create something for it's very easy to create a browser extension and get a lot of users, because everybody uses Chrome or Mozilla or Firefox, and the API is the same. So to create something like a browser extension to do something that you think that people will like, it's easy and fast if you have a template, because browser extensions, they don't have the same, they don't have like a create React app or a create Next app or AWS CDK. You have to generate your code. You have to write like the Webpack configs. You have to generate the whole thing. So I created a template, so I don't have to do it all the time. I just can copy a template and add code there, and it just works. And basically, that's it. Here goes my GitHub and my Twitter if you want to follow me. And the last tip that I want to give, and this is one that I always found myself talking to people, is to find the right partners. If you want to partner with someone, try to find yourself a person that completes you and not do the same thing as you do, because sometimes you'll just do the same thing and it's not gonna make sense. And find people that is as passionate about the product as you. And well, that's it. That's all, folks. You can hit me with some questions.
Thanks for this, Pedro. I'm going to do the question of the day that John introduced before. So tabs or spaces?
Oh, God. Like that's funny. I use Prettier on my VS Code, and literally that's something that since college I don't care about. I just like hit enter, I press tab, but I think that the Prettier transfers it to spaces at the end of the day. So with the ESLint Prettier world, you don't have to bother about it anymore. They just ended the conversation there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we have a couple of questions here. So Steve is asking, what is the funnest project that you've worked on and got to some level of finished?
Yeah, sure. That is like one that I really like to do. That was my first time creating a browser extension that I created an extension called Work Hard. That's basically a Chrome extension that you list some items and some websites or some keywords. And if you open a tab that has one of those keywords or that website that you posted, it just closes it. And I find it very useful for me because it's very easy to get like distracted with a lot of stuff these days. And I didn't find any browser extension that was just simple to use. I just wanted something that closed the tab for me, not something to show me, all right, you're opening a tab that is not blah, blah. So I created one. And another one was one that I created in college that was, actually, it was even bought by the Federation after that. That was a project to, it was kind of LMS, learning management system for people with disabilities. And as we were in college, everything was fun to do. So we created it with, like React 0.14 and Flask in the backend. And yeah, it was a fun one. It still works today, but with another name. The name that we created for it was Soare. That is kind of sun in some language that some of us like went to in somewhere, and it's still up today. So the main LMS in Brazil for people with disabilities for the federal projects uses Soare. That this is this LMS that we created.
Cool. Another interesting question from Tom McKellis is, how do you find how do you balance your time between side projects, your work, and your life?
Yeah, that's something that I always hear about. Like, how do you have so much time? Like, sometimes you just have to make choices, right? Your work will not like stop just because you started a side project, and your work can't be deprecated because of a new side project. You have to continue working on that, like the time that you have to. But the real question is like, what do you do between like 6 p.m., that is my case, I arrive at home at 6 p.m. until like 10, 11, that is when I go to sleep. And then in the morning, I wake up like early and then I have stuff to do. And a lot of people go to like Facebook or Twitter or YouTube and they spend like several hours there and they don't do anything like productive. I'm not saying for you to like stop watching YouTube or stop going to Facebook to see your friends. I'm just saying that like if you spend like 1 hour per day doing a side project, then at the end of a month, that's going to be like something. So you just have to find out like what you do that doesn't make you any good. And there's a lot of social media stuff that doesn't make any good for you. What can you stop doing and what can you start doing to be a little bit more productive?
Cool. What would be an interesting side project you're currently working on?
One that one that I want to create, and I want to find partners for this one. So if you want to, you can go to this page here, like to one of these, and hit me up. Is to create retrospective and a kind of a Scrum utils website that has like the sprint deck and sprint retrospective all in one place, because every place that I went used different tools, and it was kind of hard to find one that was good enough to say to other people to use. So I want to create one. And if you want to be on it, just hit me on these channels. I have part of it done, but 1-2 hours per day. So with more people would be like easier to do it.
I posted it on the chat so people can click on it. Cool.
All right.
So I'm going to skip Tom for now, just so I can answer someone else. So Missy is asking, what would you suggest a newbie to start with for learning to be a front-end engineer?
All right. This is something that I always hear, and it depends on your skills. If you are more of a technical person or a design person, because the front end these days, it can be like a person can be more technical or more designer. And if you have a design background, build something that is that can be beautiful and with animations and etc. That is not clunky, please. But build something like you can do it. Like create something that you see that, for example, a lot of people use I don't know, like search for an API on these open APIs and see if something that is there can be showed as something beautiful. Like we have now the how's it called, the company, the SpaceX and NASA. They all have APIs. You can create like flight simulations, like where is the flight and where it is at that moment with front-end technologies, and it's very helpful because I used it a lot in the past few months. So, and if you are more a technical person, try to create something that process data on the front end, like that show graphs or stuff like that. And one nice thing to use is the GitHub API and stuff with the GitHub API, like create that those dots of the calendar that you coded, etc. That's that's used very much for code interviews, and I know it because I've used it in the past for juniors entering on game analytics. That and even on other companies, like create that calendar, or if you are more a designer person, try to replicate what you would like to see on this landing page or something like that. I think that it covers most of the things to do as a junior wanting to be hired.
Cool. So Tommy Kellis says, it sounds like you have a lot of friends with ideas. How often do you say no to them?
Like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm from I live in London. I'm in Brazil now visiting my family because of the whole Corona thing. But I'm from a city of 35,000 people. And that's a very small city in Brazil. And everybody thinks that I am Mark Zuckerberg. So everyone comes with ideas like, I want to create this Uber-like app, or this, I don't know, like next Google with better search. And I have to say at least once per week, I have to say like, I'm sorry, I don't have time to do it right now. I can talk to some friends if they want to help you with it, but it's not going to be free and etc. So yeah, the reality in third world countries is very like hard on these ones.
Cool.